What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming at you with the Week 7 Reverse Diet Contest Vlog Series. So, kind of crazy that we are Week 7 now. We're pretty much 2 months in post-show, which feels pretty good. I feel pretty good. My energy is definitely coming back up. My relationship with food is improving. I'm definitely still thinking about food. I'm excited about food. I'm hungry more often than not, but I'm not like obsessive about it and fixated on it to the point where it's debilitating necessarily. So that's a plus. If you can recall from the last video, Week 6 was pretty much me coming out of the higher intake days for the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, in which I went to 8,000 calories both days. Then I had that fiasco with my potassium supplementation not getting delivered when it was supposed to. That got delayed yet again. So there was like a midweek electrolyte imbalance going on this week through Week 7. But I have that now, so we should start to see that stabilize going forward. But let's jump into the spreadsheet and talk a little bit about what my body's been doing here. So here we are, Week 7, starting the week off on Monday, 1/1/2024. Started the week off at 162.4. And the target macros for this week were 190 grams of fat, 180 grams of protein, 15 grams to 20 grams of total carbs, for a total of about 2490 on the calories. Now, if you can recall in the last video, I said that I've got Greg coming into town this week. He's been with me for the past 4 days. We've been working on some biz dev stuff, training, all that good stuff. And he wanted to, I wanted to kind of show him some of the meals that I've been getting. I've had all these local homesteaders around here, so I've got a great source for pastured chicken, pork, beef, lamb, and we've been kind of just sampling those out for the few days that he's been here. So rather than having a legitimate refeed day this week, in which case my calories were significantly higher than the other days, I decided to just offer myself more variety with the meals and not really have a standalone very high calorie day, but more or less target that daily intake, but it come from more of a variety of food sources, which is going to offer more variance. Even if I nail my macros perfectly, there's just going to be a little bit more variance there because it's not as consistent. When I'm in a prep, I eat the same thing every single day for the week that my macros are at a target intake. With this week, since I'm obviously not in a prep right now, and I wanted to expose him to that variety of foods from the local homestead sources, I decided to just get relatively close to what my target intake was on the day-to-day, bypass the refeed day, and then just have more variability in the food choices. So that's exactly what I did. So if we look here on the spreadsheet, on Monday I had some freeze-dried beef liver. I was kind of hungry, so I had a little bit more food intake there. That put me at about 2756 calories. On Thursday, I had some freeze-dried beef heart. That's my idea of a splurge these days, ladies and gents. Rather than having like a bunch of keto treats and totally going off keto in the first place, which a lot of people do, I have some freeze-dried beef heart or beef liver. So that's my cut and loose right there. But that put me at about 2,700 calories. Greg flew in on Friday, and on Friday we had, let's see what we had. We pull up my macros here. That would have been the 5th. So on the 5th, I was, you see, a little bit off on the protein and fat, but relatively close. We decided to opt for a grass-fed beef ribeye steak, so I had that with some eggs and some egg whites. That put me at about 2,700 on the calories there. On Saturday, we decided to mix it up a little bit more, and we went with a pork steak, I believe. So the white chocolate peppermint brick, and then we had a pork steak. And those are a little bit harder to track from an accuracy standpoint because steaks in general, whether it's beef or pork, you're going to get some more variance as to how much marbling is in there, how much of a fat cap is on the outside of the meat. So again, I don't ever recommend steaks or primal cuts like that when you're in a prep, but I'm trying to give myself more flexibility now coming into this reverse diet. So that's what my intake was on Saturday. That put me at about 2,600 calories. On Sunday, I wound up at 208 fat, 225 protein, and I consumed, we went with a kind of a carnivore nacho situation here. So I had some tuna steaks and a Bell's brownie brick in the morning, and then we had some pork cracklings, some ground lamb, and then a little bit of freeze-dried steak. We put all of that like in a nacho format. So that's pretty much what my intake was on Sunday. So again, more variance as far as the food choices go throughout the week than I normally allow myself, but no crazy high refeed day. I was less than 3,000 calories every day of the week, whereas in the past I've had several days beyond that. So from a weight standpoint, as far as cardio goes, I did 1 day of cardio on Thursday, 25 minutes at level 15, holding that constant there. Now, when you look at what my weight has been doing, I was 162.4 on Monday, and that's honestly been kind of dipping down. There's been a fewer high days based off of these fluctuations in sodium as a result of having that increased food variance. But I mean, I got down to 160.8, 160.9. Again, I'm filming these on the following Monday, so I woke up at 161.2 today. But my average weight for the week of week 7 was 161.5 with a target goal weight of being 159.4. So I'm getting that much more dialed in compared to the prior week, in which case my average was 162.1 and the goal being 158.4. So things are starting to level out a little bit. Also, what I have found is that, kind of by giving myself a little bit more variability there, not being as food focused, not having that really high refeed day throughout the week with him being in town and wanting to expose him to some more foods, I'm getting very close to transitioning into phase 7 of this reverse diet and prep series. So if you can recall, phase 6 is basically the continuation of those refeeds that we introduced in phase 4 and 5 during peak week. And phase 7 is basically wiping those out. So throughout phase 6, the refeed macros are in decline while the daily macros are going up until they more or less meet in the middle. Then you could phase out those refeeds. So if you look up at the very top spreadsheet here, as you start introducing these refeeds in phase 4 and 5, they're climbing, and then they start to decline throughout phase 6, and you pretty much make them obsolete in phase 7. So here we are pretty much on the tail end of this graph, and you can see that the daily intake on a non-refeed day is getting much closer to what my intake is on a planned refeed day. So once they more or less meet in the middle again, I'll just make those obsolete and pretty much transition to phase 7 at that point, in which case I'm not really having standalone structured refeed days. I'm just consuming more food on a daily average in general. So my daily average this week, if we go back down here, was about 2,600 calories, if I recall. Yeah, so 2,660 was my average intake if you were to take that throughout the entire week. Next week, I'll be at about 2,680, 2,700, maybe a little bit more, probably around that 2,700 mark. And then, continuing to scale up from there. I've got a feeling that once I'm around 3,000, I can pretty much wipe out the refeeds altogether. And at that point, hopefully at 3,000, I'll be more satiated and won't be as focused on food at all. But I'm definitely still hungry at this point and still excited to eat when that time comes. Once I get above 3,000 calories, though, my hormones, my metabolism, my fixation on food should all pretty much stabilize. So let's look at some progress pictures that were taken on Monday. Again, this was the highest weight of the week. So this is when I am still holding a little bit of fluid from that electrolyte mishap and probably still some from all of the Christmas festivities here. And you can see that fluid retention just in my face, in my cheeks. Everything is just a little bit more swollen. But still pretty dialed in, all things considered here. Still have the vascularity. Still have separation throughout the quads, the calves, the shoulder caps. So I'm not too disappointed with it. I mean, having separation here on the upper leg this far post-show, I feel good about that. When I wake up in the mornings and hit my first pose and weigh in, I still have vascularity in my glutes. So coming up on 7-8 weeks post-show now and still having vascularity in my glutes, I'm quite all right with that. I am trying to put on weight. I am trying to put on body fat, but in a healthy, sustainable manner. So that is what we've got for week 7 on the recap, ladies and gents. We're going to be diving into phase 7 here before 12 for long, and I'll kind of structure that with y'all going forward. But again, just to summarize, we're getting to the point now where we can start to phase out the refeeds and just start being a little more aggressive with the daily intake overall. I had a lot more food variability this week because he was in town. After he leaves, I'll probably dial things in a little bit more and just have a couple weeks in the remaining part of phase 6 where there is less variability, so I can have a good solid baseline going into the beginning of phase 7. That's going to call it for this vlog series, or this vlog update. So I will see y'all next week for week 8.